turn on your cameras and mute your microphones unless allowed by the company. Before we get started, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to all of you who have generously helped us make this event come together to become a success. To make sure this event runs smoothly, we would like to first invite Alif to lead us in our opening prayer. Alif, the time and place is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we start this event, let us bow our head for a moment. Pray our God so that our international conference can be precious to all of us. Ala hadinya wa ala kulli niyatin sholihah. Al-Fatihah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanirrahim. Maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas shiratal mustaqim. Shiratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear Allah, today Sunday, November 20, 2022, in this beautiful place, we gather here to bring about an international conference on transnational business and technology law. Dear God, make this international conference as a useful science assembly as a medium of sharing useful ideas, knowledge, and experience of scholars, researchers, and students of various disciplines. May the conference we organize today benefit to our lives, broaden our knowledge, shine our ideas, and lead us to be successful, productive persons, which in turn will boost dignity of our nation. Dear Allah, protect us from unintended temptation, show us the right path, and give us knowledge and strength to perform good things. Equally, show us and make it clear the bad things and give us knowledge and strength to avoid them. Dear Allah, you are the one who can fulfill our prayer. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Walhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Alif, for the opening prayer. Now we will proceed into the singing of our national anthem. May everyone please stand up. Once again, as a reminder for those of you who haven't turned on the cameras, please have them on and remember to switch off your microphones. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next session, we will hear some welcoming remarks. First, we have Dr. Ahmad Sofyan, SHMA, as the head of Business Law Department at Venus University. Hello, Doctor. Are you present in this Zoom meeting?
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, salam budaya dan salam kebajikan. Dr. Elisa Carolina, Dean of the Faculty of Humanity, and Prof. Joseph Stanisius Harijanto, the Rector of Binus University, and also the committee and speakers and also participants from the Business Law University. First of all, thank you very much for giving me a chance. And then also today we have here together in the first International Conference on Transnational Business and Technology Law 2022 with the theme of responding the challenging of restoring international stability took the G20 presidency in the field of transnational business and technology law. Business law, Binus University is very pleased to host this conference. As we know that the world is currently facing many challenges, and one of the weeks, the COVID-19 pandemic, the impact in health, economic, investment, trade, as well as multimodal internationally. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, Indonesia, which is projected as the country with the fourth largest GDP in the world in 2030, has again declined as a lower middle income country in the which the decline in gross national income or GNI per capita. In addition, to the COVID-19 pandemic that has not fully recovered, the economic has not fully recovered. The world is also faced with the war in Ukraine, which has caused the food, energy, and financial crisis. As a result, there are countries affected by the crisis, some of which are expected to go bankrupt. To discuss this issue, I hope that through the activities of International Conference on the Transnational Business and Technology Law 2022, it can stimulate new ideas in responding to major changes in every joint of the transnational business law and technology law, and be able to produce policy recommendation for the transnational business law and technology that provide an alternative adapting to major transformation in the future. The recommendation is also expected to be able to answer the description of the policy direction in the context of the global economic recovery with the main goal of the G20 presidency in Indonesia. Thank you very much and enjoy for this conference. Hopefully all of you could share and discuss about the research, your experience, and also your knowledge. Thank you very much, and I give to close my opening ceremony to the master ceremony. Thank you very much, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to the head of Business Law Department at Binus University for the warm welcoming remarks. Next up, we have Dr. Elisa Carolina Marian, SS MSc, as the Dean of Faculty of Humanities at Binus University. Unfortunately, Dr. Elisa is unable to be present here today, but she has sent her remarks through a video. Can the committee please share screen the video? Thank you.
Business Law Department, Binus University, distinguished partners, speakers, and presenters. Good morning and welcome to the first International Conference on Transnational Business and Technology Law 2022. First of all, let us thank God who has given His grace and guidance so that we can participate the first international conference on transnational business and technology law with the theme of responding the challenges of restoring international stability through the G20 presidency in the field of transnational business and technology law. I welcome all of you to this seminar, which has received great attention not only from university, but also from transnational business and technology law communities to submit papers to be presented in this seminar. I express my highest gratitude and appreciation to the presenters. Dear participants, COVID-19 has encouraged changes in consumer and business behavior towards the digital economy. And I believe that this seminar will stimulate new ideas in response to major changes in every joint of transnational business and technology law. Through this activity, it is hoped that policy recommendations that offer alternatives in the field of transnational business and technology law will be created to adapt to significant transformation in the future. These recommendations are also anticipated to provide answers to the picture of policy directions in the context of the global economy recovery, which is the primary objective of Indonesia G20 presidency. This seminar will not be well organized without the support of various parties, especially the sponsors and contribution from all the participants. Therefore, I want to express my gratitude. I would especially like to thank the organizing committees for their tireless efforts, perseverance, and passion in planning and organizing this seminar so that it runs smoothly and successfully. Finally, through this seminar, let us extend the network and cooperation among all stakeholders of the transnational business and technology law, especially in Indonesia and in the world in general, to build a better future in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
For the warm welcoming remarks. Last but not least, we have Professor MM as Director of University. Unfortunately, Dr.
Distinguished partner and keynote speakers, Venusian leaders and committee of the Department of Business Law, Venus University, and all distinguished participants. Good morning. First of all, we thank God Almighty for all His grace so that today the first International Conference on Transnational Business and Technology Law 2022 with the theme of responding the challenge of restoring international stability through the G20 presidency in the field of transnational business and technology law can be carried on. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has been in the midst of our life for approximately 3 years so far. Of course, 3 years is defined as a lot of short time considering the changes caused by the COVID-19 virus pandemics in our daily life, including some of which are economic and digital aspects. Indonesian government, with its slogan "Recover faster, rise stronger," has been able to reinvent and turn the wheels of the country's economy again, while considering in the safety of every citizen. It is our hope with the holding this conference, a positive response can be created, which accompanied by various developments in dealing with the shift in the joy of our daily lives. Furthermore, I hope that after this conference, we will be able to provide an overview regarding the direction of the policy product of the head of the state in the G20 forum. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my highest appreciation to all invited keynote speakers, all presenters, and participants who will make this conference meaningful. I wish all of you a great conference and make new relations during the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rector of Venus University, for the warm welcoming remarks. For the next session, we invite the moderator in charge to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, MC. Good morning and welcome, honorable speakers and guest participants. Welcome back to the first International Conference on Transnational Business and Technology Law 2022, Day 2, held by Venus University. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Misha Safira, and I am the moderator who will be guiding you through today's International Conference. Before we begin, I would like to kindly remind everyone to please make sure that their microphone is muted unless they're required to unmute themselves to create a conducive ambience. Subsequently, after the honorable speakers have delivered their materials, there will be a discussion in a form of question and answer session with the participants. And so, I kindly remind all participants who may have some questions, please write it in the chat box with your name and to whom the question is addressed to. Thank you. Very well. Without further ado, let us begin the introduction and material presentations of our honorable speakers today. For our first honorable speaker, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Andre Omer Siregar, BA, MBA, MDT, here to grace today's international conference with his presence. Mr. Andre Omer Siregar, after studying at Monash University and Charles Darwin University School of Law, he is now the Consulate General of Republic Indonesia in Houston, Texas, United States. Prior to Houston, Consul General Andre served as Director for Asia, Pacific, and Africa Interregional Cooperation, handling regional forums such as APEC, Pacific Island Forum, Indian Ocean Rim Association, Asia Cooperation Dialogue, and 40 other forums from 2018 to 2022. Special attention is paid to the issue of the Indo-Pacific. In 2018, he served as Director of Asia Pacific Africa Interregional Cooperation until now. Furthermore, in December 2014 until now, he has also served as the Indonesian Consul at Darwin. He is also experienced as Assistant Special Staff and Interpreter of President. And now he is the Consul General of Republic Indonesia in Houston, Texas, United States. At today's international conference, he will be presenting his material presentation titled Indonesia and the USA, Trade and Business Relations in Today's Dynamic Global Situation. Hello and good morning, Mr. Seregar. It is a great honor for us to have you here. How are you, sir?
Selamat pagi, good morning. Hi, good evening from Houston. Meisha ya panggilannya ya.
Yes, Mr. Seregar. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for the generous introduction. May I begin?
Yes, you may begin, sir. You have
Thank you.
2 minutes to present. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours to present. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Meisha. Again, what a wonderful opportunity to be here. Let me first of all acknowledge Professor Haryanto Prabowo, also Professor Eliza Carolina, Professors Ahmad Sofyan, Dr. Siddhartha, and my good friend, Dr. Prita Amalia, and my big brother, Kepala Pusat BSKLN, Bapak Muhammad Takdir from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's a privilege to share the screen with you, Bapak Kapus. But more importantly, I think it is a privilege for me to be in this special event organized by BUNOS. I want to congratulate you and all the organizers for conducting this event right at the peak of the G20 summit where Indonesia was chair. But before I begin, a special shout out to friends in BUNOS. I see we have about 80 participants. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us in Houston. And we also have friends from the Consulate General Economic Section keeping an eye on our discussion. And inshallah, we'll be the ones following up on our presentations. Of course, with collaboration with Bapak Kapus Takdir, who is an important partner for the Consulate General. As I convey my presentation, I know my friend Kyle is holding the screen, but I will be going very, very fast in the presentation. I know the theme is about Indonesia and U.S. Trade and investment, but as the Consul General of Indonesia and Houston, I'll be giving a special emphasis on the 10 states that I cover. May I begin?
Yes.
So, thanks, Meisha. Can everybody see the presentation? There we go. So, as Meisha mentioned, my preference for the Indo-Pacific, Pak Takdir here is one of the experts on Indo-Pacific, but that's probably the gist of what I want to say. In my presentation, even though it's 44 slides, I'll be sharing it with everybody. Please bear with me in seeing the pictures, but the reality is I can give you the conclusion right now. Indonesia and the US are two large democracies, and inshallah, by 2045, Indonesia and the US will be two of the four largest economies in the world. And that means in the next 25 years, we will grow by $7 trillion. And it will be a time when all of you here today will be the leaders. Pak Takdir and I, we will still be working, Pak Takdir, yeah? We'll still be enjoying our term as diplomats and advisors, but all of you here, all these 80 students here, Pak Takdir, they are the future captains of industries, and you will be leaders, ministers, ambassadors, and of course, inshallah, somebody from here will be the Minister of Trade, Minister of Investment, and inshallah, like President Joko Widodo, one of you can be the president. So again, as I mentioned earlier, Pak Takdir, did you know that BUNOS is one of the 3 only universities of business schools in Indonesia that has the AACSB? It is one of the standards for global appreciation of business schools. And in Indonesia, there's only UGM, there's only ITB, but first there was BUNOS. So again, you all must be very, very proud in being part of that special business law and business network. So let me begin now on my presentation. I'll go very, very fast so that you'll have a chance to ask questions if you want before the question tonight. So when I convey, the next slide is about how Indonesia and how you see the US. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the US is the biggest economy in the world today with $25 trillion. But the reality is in 25 years, it is a neck-on-neck race with China. And Americans don't like that. But the reality is we have the numbers, we have the productivity, and we have the growth. And as China leads in the global economy. Indonesia will rise with India. And how do we see ourselves at that time? And I hope the 80 students here tonight will be part of that architecture. It's important that we're aware of this, and you must find your footing as America, despite being overtaken by China, maybe, given the situation at Takdir, yeah, I mean, like the Russia-Ukraine war has caused a lot of disruptions in the world economy. So maybe something else will happen. But the reality is Indonesia and the US have to be closer in partners. And youths like you need to be captains of industries or even masters in networks or even ambassadors in parts in collaboration. In the next slide, I want to quickly go through what KJRI Houston has to offer. And one thing that maybe Pa Kapos Takdir knows, we have about 7 Indonesian missions in the US, 5 consulate generals, 1 embassy, and 1 UN mission. But the reality is, with each of the consulate generals, in Houston particularly, I cover 10 states. And in those 10 states, the economic value is 5 trillion. Indonesia's economic value today is about 1.3 trillion, Pak Takdir, yeah? So you can imagine that the size of KJRI Houston's economic worth is the size of Japan, Germany, or even bigger than many forums. So this is a big deal. And the strength about the Consulate General is we're not bound by political limitations or dialogues. We're focused on empowering business students, business chambers, and of course, sister city, sister province cooperation. Because at the end of the day, it's how we empower all the Indonesian provinces and the 10 states that we cover. Next slide is, again, as I mentioned, I cover 10 states. All of these states are very powerful. I mean, like in some African regions, they're as big as a country. In fact, one state is probably in the Pacific. You know, Australia, New Zealand, all of those Pacific Island countries put together is probably smaller than Oklahoma or smaller than Georgia in terms of economic value. So this is a big deal, and I hope you as students can capitalize on that. Maybe BINUS need to have an MOU with Permias in various sectors, or even have a special internship with the consulate so that we can throw you into the business chambers of those 10 states. So in my next slide, again, for the Houston Consulate General Territory, you can see here we cover 30% of the U.S. population. The 10 states, which if you weren't aware, it's Alabama, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, New Mexico, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and of course Texas, Tennessee, and yes, Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. But again, 5 trillion is their economic value. So when the Consulate General in Houston works with all those 10 states, the governors, the Secretary of State, and the Chambers of Commerce, they contribute 33% of the U.S.'s GDP. So, Pak Takdir, I think what we need to do, Pak Takdir, yeah, is that we need to look at America as the giant as it is. It is not one country with one vote in the UN. For economic purposes, it is an entity in which we have to have a special strategy. If not, if you just treat the US the same as you treat Australia, Australia might be important politically and physically in proximity, but the reality is the economic depth of Australia is still reliant on Europe and America, whereas Indonesia going straight to America, going straight to the States, we can play a role, ya Pak Takdir, yeah, the governor's offices, the Chamber of Commerce, and that's probably where folks like you and BINUS can play a role. So let me go to the third slide, the next slide. Indonesia's trade with South Central USA. Here, as you can see, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi. You know, we have trade with Texas at $2.6 billion. One thing that we need to highlight is now Texas is the third largest economy for a state in the U.S., and that's because of the COVID situation and the energy crisis. And again, Indonesia is a deficit because we import so many raw materials from them. But in the bigger sense, we are still export surplus with the other 10 states. However, I can say that given that we cover 32% of the U.S. economy and our trade is about 17 billion, I can say for a fact that 32% of Indonesia's trade goes through KJRI Houston's region. So what does that mean? Yeah, it means that the silent traders are already moving, and I hope that students from BINUS can take advantage of that. You can be the connector. So that's briefly about Texas, and of course, I'll leave the slides to you to consider what is our main exports from Indonesia to the US, which is continuously growing from 29 billion to 34 billion. We want to reach 60 billion, and that's within a few years, Pak Takdir. So the reality is, to have a promotion of such, we need a bigger budget, because right now we have to compete with Vietnam, Thailand, Pakistan, and the reality is America sees the world in a simple phase, not like Australia or New Zealand, where they look at Indonesia as a big country. America sees Africa, Latin America, even Europe as a partner. So how do we get their attention? And that's something that I hope I can work with Pak Takdir. Even though Pak Takdir, I believe Pak Takdir is still dealing with Asia Pacific and Africa, but there's the geoeconomics that we can work together. And Pak Takdir, maybe Pak Kapus, we can get these youths to be ready for the new threat that is awaiting all of us, the recession in 2023, and the potential for other kinds of conflict approaching 2030. So in my next slide, here's what I would share to the Americans, a glance of Indonesia. We are the fourth largest, most populated country in the world, but 2050 will be the fourth largest in terms of economic value. So I have to remind them that Americans, this is slide number 9. I have to remind the Americans that, Indonesia will grow. We hope we can grow with you, or if we have to grow against you as competitors, it's fine. But the reality is, it would be their loss. And for us, we have a lot of partners in Asia anyway. But to get their attention, we need to do that. And maybe with BINUS and other students, we can throw in the youth so that they can know the true potential of Indonesia's future. The next slide, slide number 10. There you are. I'll keep going. Catch up with me if you can. So yes, we're past that one. I'm going to. How much time do I have left, Mbak Meisha?
Another 3 minutes.
Excellent. In that case, with that, I'm going to race right through, because I know that in Houston we have 4 key sectors. There's energy and sustainable transition, there's digital transformation, there's global healthcare industry, and there's creative arts. As you can see, President Joko Widodo met with Elon Musk. I met with Elon Musk. Pak Lut met with Elon Musk. That was in Austin. But the reality is, Texas and this part of South Central USA has a lot of potential for Indonesia, especially as we build the new capital city. And not to mention that, we work with Pertamina and Pegi and Saka, and how do we create more energy and more sustainability. But not just that, we collaborate in the vaccine diplomacy, in which the president launched a few weeks ago, the new domestic development, which in October 2022. That's because we had collaboration with Baylor in Houston. So a lot of technology is happening here. We want to have more collaboration in the creative industry. I know that in Austin, even Amazon and all those other companies are moving to Texas. But what does it really mean? There are many, many rich Indonesians who are in IT. I hope that you can learn from them. I mentioned here in slide 20 that we have a lot of startups that are growing, but the reality is, in Texas and in Georgia, you need to know the people there on sustainable startups. In Georgia and Atlanta is the fintech industry. So throughout all my slides, I have a special session on how COVID affected the economy, Ukraine-Russia affects the economy, and also a special view on the climate change issue. But let me go straight to the end, to the conclusion, so that all of you can see. I'm glad that you're still proud of G20, because Pak Takdir and all of Kemlu worked really hard for that one. That should have failed. That was the most difficult G20 summit in history. And I've been to many of them. I was there in 2008, 2009, 2010. I've seen how bad it can get, but that was the worst. And I informed Ibu Menlu, if it wasn't for Ibu Menlu, you would not have all 17, 18 leaders at Takdir. It could have fell apart really easy because of the Russia-Ukraine situation. And yet Indonesia kept everyone together. The reality is, the G20 is only one example of the challenges faced in the world regarding Russia and Ukraine, because, as I mentioned earlier, the US and China have a situation in which they need to facilitate the creation of a new framework. China is built under an initiative, and Indonesia's Indo-Pacific, as Pak Takdir and I are familiar, in ASEAN. We're chairing ASEAN this year with the theme of ASEAN Matters. the epicentrum of growth, because Indonesia is in the middle of everything. It's up to you, all you students, how you're going to play that role, so that in the next 25 years, you won't be comfortable just working with China or the US, but you'll be the bridge. Yeah, Pak Takdir, yeah. I mean, the Indo-Pacific century is here, and I hope all of you can really learn about how important that is, because America is throwing the Indo-Pacific economic framework, and then there's also the Belt and Road Initiative that continues. I know tempatnya Pak Takdir, I know Aspasaf went to places like Djibouti and although Colombo, Sri Lanka, and the reality is the Belt Road Initiative has affected many small countries in Africa and Central Asia. And just finally, in my concluding remarks, what does it all mean for you? You are the future of Indonesia's economy. And as much as it's not just for Binus, but for everybody else, but with your track, you can access the universities, the business schools, the chambers of commerce in the US, and let me be your facility, your bridge. Come to me and have an arrangement so that you can have an exchange program, an internship program, an awareness program. Just come. You have to be in the US. You have to take their technology, because if we don't, I know other countries are doing that. Maybe Pak Takdir knows, just 3 years ago during Donald Trump, the Consulate General of China was closed down because they found out that they sent hundreds of students through the Consulate General to steal the technology in South Central USA. It's closed down. I don't expect you to steal the technology, of course, but the reality is you have to go out there and jemput bola, yeah? And in that regard, in my concluding remarks, with Indonesian News, your artists, the innovators, students, the future leaders, the believers, the US is still the place for you to find new opportunities. The US is our partner, and you are the future captains of industry. Take advantage of all our collaboration for the Consulate General or the embassy. Be creative. And as you can see in my final slide, President Biden and President Jokowi is walking at the G20. That's me and walking with President Jokowi at the APEC Summit, Pak Takdir. I was still a bit thin back then, but living in America, life is good. So my suits don't fit me anymore. That's why I'm wearing this jacket. But Pak Takdir will know what it's like. In Indonesia, your body's slim and fit. But when you're abroad, the food is good. And inshallah, all my job is to encourage all of you to come together as one great team of Indonesian youths. Thank you very much. I would welcome any questions, but I understand that you will have a special session of questions tonight. Wake me up if you're finished, or if you have something happening, it'll all be fine.
Excuse me, Mr. Siregar. Considering the time difference in USA right now, we would like to just start the Q&A session for Mrs. Siregar right now.
MashaAllah.
Yes.
Thank you, Pak
Go ahead,
Panjat.
go ahead.
There's
Go ahead. I'm excited. But again, if I believe in all of you. If you need me to wake up at 3 in the morning, I'll wake up just for you. But I hope that you'll not only wake me up, I hope you'll visit me in Houston. And as you can see here, there's a person named Erkan Siregar here. He's very active. And he will be your chauffeur when you visit America. Silakan, Meisha, if there's any questions.
Okay, first question to Mrs. Siregar. Indonesia has just collaborated with Tesla, a company in the technology sector. What do you think about this collaboration? Does Indonesia specifically benefit more or vice versa?
Hey, Meisha, how about we throw in 3 questions so that I can hear as many people as possible? And even if Takdir wants to ask me a question regarding when BSKLN can come to Houston, by all means, Lopa. But please throw me more questions.
Okay, another question. What is your opinion regarding Indonesia's position regarding the idea that Indonesia wants to make a big shift in the energy sector, especially in the renewable energy sector, seeing from yesterday's government movement at the G20 presidency related to renewable energy?
Okay, that's a really good one. Can you give me one more?
For now, that's just the 2 questions. I will ask another question.
Do you have a question, Meisha? Do you want to ask anything? Do you want a ticket to Houston? Do you want me to give you a special ticket or what?
Not at the time, thank you, sir. Oh, there's another participant who may wants to ask, but you can answer the earlier question first, sir.
All right, I see Miss Aurora. Okay, so I'll quickly answer these ones. So firstly, Tesla Indonesia. So when Pa Luhut visited Texas to meet with Elon Musk, the media doesn't know many things about what happens in discussion behind closed doors. the reality, it's not about Tesla entering Indonesia and what benefits Indonesia. The reality is the world markets are adjusting. Yeah? They're moving from expensive economies, expensive countries, expensive regions, and they just want to make new partners. And in the past, they're more comfortable working with old partners like partners in China and partners in Japan, but now they want to find new partners. So when Tesla met with Pak Luhut and they and the Indonesian government facilitated a visit for the Tesla team to set up many arrangements. It wasn't just opening. It wasn't just about nickel. The discussion was about how are we going to address electric cars? How are we going to address Indonesian youths that can be working in the innovation? And more importantly, will we have a mega plan in Southeast Asia? Is it Thailand or Indonesia? And the discussion has been ongoing, but the reality is we managed to get Elon Musk's attention, and he's quite intrigued, especially when I told him, Elon Musk have a selfie because you just bought Twitter. So he was very happy back in April. I don't know about today. Yeah, I mean, like Twitter made him not come here, Pak Takdir. Yeah, if it wasn't for Twitter, maybe he would have been in Bali. But the good news is it just means that Tesla and SpaceX and all those other companies are looking at Indonesia, teman-teman. And are you the one ready? Because Tesla they wanted to open up a factory in Kalimantan, and their question was, do you have young Indonesian engineers or people who want to work hard? And I said, well, we have a lot of young Indonesians. Our demographic dividends are significant. So now it's a question of shifting all those companies to look at Indonesia. And what happened in the G20 is actually they saw what we can do. So it's a good thing. It's a benefit. Pertaining to the legal matters, it's up to each of your companies to benefit from that one. And again, but now they look, even SpaceX wanted to open up in Indonesia, but Kominfo said, actually, we want to make this thing not private in terms of the private sector, but based on the government regulations. Maybe you can persuade them. Look, actually, we want SpaceX to be more present, especially now they're launching rockets. One thing Elon Musk did say in front of Pak Jokowi, I was there next to him. He says, we need more young people to go to Mars, and in a way, he was asking Pak Jokowi, are there young Indonesians who want to go to Mars? And I'm sure that Meisha would love to go to Mars, and your friends. So this is something that's happening here. So don't look at Tesla as a benefit or not. It's always a benefit. The question is, can we keep up with the market growth? On the second question on the renewable energies, I think what happened in G20 was very good, yeah, Pak Takdir, yeah. 31 trillion rupiah supported by the G7, but also the commitment at the climate conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. But let me give you something, my friends, and please get this really clearly. I'm from Texas, and Pak Takdir, I'm sorry, Pak Takdir. Pak Takdir. I'm from Texas. I used to be in the UN, but the reality is there is nothing more efficient than oil. And you cannot transform all your energy needs into renewable energies, because the reality is if it's not reliable, it'll impede in growth. And so you have to make energy as efficient as possible. You need a transition that is good. Yeah, we need a commitment, maybe cleaner coal. But the reality is, living in Texas and meeting many Republicans, I'm beginning to see their logic. We have been reliant on oil for the past 100 years. If we're going to just abandon it and then go straight to electric batteries, people don't realize that when you make a battery or an electric car, someone has to pay, be that pay in terms of environmental damage, or I mean, like there has to be the mining and excavation, which is also very costly. So jangan sampai nanti tiba-tiba all Europe is happy with their electric cars, but all of Asia is the one that's paying for their development. So renewable is important, but sustainability is more important, and that's probably why I think all of you should learn, because we're getting a lot of funding for renewable and a lot of funding from fracking, oil fracking technology. ASDM is a great partner to learn about energy diplomacy, energy cooperation, but I hope a lot of you will be flexible in learning that energy can be anything. So find the business model so that we can energize Eastern Indonesia, Central Indonesia, and especially how can you be part of the IKN, yeah? the clean city. Come to Houston and see what industries that you want to be partnering. So the problem with America is they don't know Indonesia enough. They don't trust Indonesia. I mean, like you're too far away. So if Meisha would go to Houston, I know some BINU students in Houston will take you all the way to Atlanta or take you to Alabama. And we're more than happy to host a Venus delegation. So that's that, Nisha. Is there another question from Aurora?
Yes, Aurora, you may speak.
Yeah, greetings from Indonesia. Thank you, Misha, for the opportunity. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ola. I'm from Tanokaro, Sidikalang, Bapak. If you're from Texas,
Horas.
you sounds like a Texas man right now. I don't know
Yeah.
where your origin to. I believe that you have the same ancestral land along with me,
We
maybe
do,
Tano Batak.
Aurora. Yes. Horas.
Horas Abang. So, speaking of Houston,
Abang.
I used to work in Kanaka Phillips back in 2011, and our life been so good. Life was going on so good. Even the rate of the salary and so on and so on, the funding. But unfortunately, I gotta be honest here because only recently in 2021. Kanaka Phillips resigned from Indonesia, signed out, and then no longer foreign investment in here. And then what comes next is actually we start asking our question. We start asking the very core of the questions here regarding the foreign investment. Maybe it sounds too good to be true as the portfolio at the beginning, but my very questions is especially in the era when we are in the middle of transformations here. We're speaking about the sustainable development, and then we're speaking about that the renewable energy here. What's your very message? As I believe that you are Indonesian agent of change, and you are the Texas man. Really,
I'm Batak.
You are the Batak, this person, yeah.
And
yeah.
my son goes to Venus, so that makes me Venus also, ya Pak Takdir, ya.
Exactly. What's your very message in regards to the economic policy in Indonesia? So we are in the pinnacle of our role here as our presidency in G20, and I believe in 2023 we are also entrusted to be the head leader of ASEAN. What's your very big message for Indonesia to be not only sustainable but also to become the boss, the host of the of its own economic, especially when we're speaking about the investment law in here, how to be independent, how to exactly how to make a robust decisions in regards to in the investment policy that make us not only depend on the fund or maybe foreign investment, but also to have a robust destinations in regards to the development of our economics. That's my very question, sir, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is it Aurora or is it Aula, that your call name?
Just call me Ola or Mrs. Meliela,
Ola,
whatever
okay.
you like.
All right. Ola, Horas. Thank you so much, Ola. Yeah, very inspired. Wow, working Patakdir. She's working Konoko Patakdir. I mean, like we're working in PNS. I mean, like our gaji is about 7 million, 15 million, 20 million, and Konoko is about $20,000. So if Aula is now working in Venus or studying in Venus, congratulations, you've done a leap of faith because those companies are very profitable. So and thank you for inspiring these youths. I think Aula dan teman-teman, yeah, and maybe Pak Takdir would agree with me in my reports. The problem with Indonesia is when you talk about investments, there are kinds of investment, yeah. Investments that are more facilitative by BKPM and investments that are small scale. Tapi when it comes to energy, you know, they invest billions of dollars, and all to them is what's important thing is we don't change a law every time we have a new president or a new energy minister. We have to have a commitment at least 10 years. So for all of you who want to work in ConocoPhillips, they're still our partners. And even though they're no longer in Indonesia, because Pertamina manages all the assets, including, you know, Chevron was a strong partner of Indonesia, and of course Pertamina took over, and that also includes the French company Total, ya Pak Takdir, ya. So teman-teman, as much as you are passionate about being in business law, you have to know your anggota DPR, your Komisi 6 ya atau Komisi 5 ya Pak Takdir ya yang menangani isu energi. And apa namanya the reality is what Ibu Ola mentioned, how can they invest in Indonesia when our laws are so scary? But yet yesterday the B20 was very optimistic, countries look towards us. So kalau zaman dulu saya sama Pak Takdir masih di Kemlu tuh masih di Kemlu in the 90s, the joke is Indonesia tuh bagaikan perempuan cantik, and all the guys are gawking ya, datang langsung. Jadi kayak misalnya si Meisha lagi ini belum punya pacar waktu itu ya, sekarang udah punya pacar katanya ya. Jadi waktu Meisha masih single atau masih ini, udah mulai dikeroyokin sama cowok-cowok gitu ya. Tapi bapaknya galak banget. Ibaratnya peraturannya tuh Anda harus ini itu. Jadi pada akhirnya itu yang salah Meisha atau salah orang tuanya? Tentu Meisha harus bilang sama ayahnya, Pat, jangan bikin undang-undang yang 10 tahun. I mean like, and that's you ya, you're the next generation. So when you see those DPR discussions, you need to know and talk with them and even learn from the private sector. I mean like, what bothers them? These investments are expensive ya. Dan Pak Takdir will agree with me. Building and developing in Eastern Indonesia, it costs money. Even impact sampai sekarang belum beres Pak Takdir ya. We had an LNG plant since I was consul in Darwin in 2014, impacts in Saum Laki, and today 2022, 8 years later, it's still the same. I mean like, is it our democracy? Kalau ini ya suatu kelemahan nih Ibu dosen, Ibu Profesor Aurora, Bu Aula, bahwa pada akhirnya jangan sampai kita terbiasa dengan prinsip kalau bisa dibikin repot, kenapa dibikin gampang? Kalau bisa dibikin susah, kenapa dibikin simple? It is a danger ya. And you as business students, you really got to go straight to the core. It's very easy. Orang Indonesia tuh kalau dideketin senang. Jadi tapi jangan pernah ngarap mereka berubah sebelum kita deketi mereka. Bahkan untuk undang-undang itu aja, it takes a lot of lobbying and ini apa ya, a lot of lobbying to those members of parliament. So you might want to explore knowing them more and telling them, hey, your laws, your requirements is endangering business effectivity. So, but I think Professor Aurora that he mentioned, next year we'll be chairing ASEAN. And I think that's an amazing thing, yeah, because next year, so this year it was Russia and Ukraine. Next year it'll be China and the US. So how do we bring them together? And Pak Takdir will be fully aware the burden of this BRI versus IPEF. Again, teman-teman, what is the message that I hope you will all take away from this? You have to think 3 steps ahead. And you can partner with Chinese companies, you can partner with European companies, but the reality is, as the topic is about America, you need to know more Americans, yeah. And let KJRI, KBRI, and even tempatnya Pak Kapus, PSKLN, they can give you some strategies. We're not going to lecture you because you have the passion, but the reality is, Indonesia's investment is because we're democratic, we're not as efficient as Vietnam or as efficient as Thailand, but they still come to us because we have this vibe, this pull, this ASEAN ability to bring people together. So my message would be to all you students, book your ticket to Houston. Let Erkan be the one that welcomes your team. And Meisha, please, since you're the MC, please tell me when we can have a special order for you. Tapi semangat terus ya, semangat terus. It's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse. Waktu saya masuk Kemlu in 98 ya Pak Takdir ya, I was in Procter & Gamble. And our rupiah was 2,200 and it shot to 17,000. But still, I joined Kemlu. I followed Pak Takdir. He's my senior. And now I'm excited because we need to have youths like you to develop Kalimantan, Eastern Indonesia. Don't follow the mainstream. Find your path, find your niche, and see how you can be a captain of industry. And you have friends in Kajeri. You have Bang Andre. You can contact us anytime. Intern di KJRI. If you want to get support from Kemlu, I'm sure Pak Takdir might have a program, a tour visit. Tapi perlu ya Pak Takdir ya. BUNUS ini luar biasa nih, anak-anak mahasiswanya sangat agresif, inovatif. Insya Allah mereka bisa lebih dekat dengan Chamber of Commerce di Florida, Chamber of Commerce di Georgia, Chamber of Commerce di Texas, even just in Atlanta ya. You can learn about fintech. There's so many Permias Georgia Tech yang benar-benar bisa jadi mitra. So that's my 2 cents. Again, I apologize Mbak Meisha ya, saya bercanda-bercanda gitu biar teman-teman are inspired by young leaders like you. And apalagi kalau punya dosen kayak Ibu Aurora sih, saya pasti nggak akan absen ya Pak Takdir ya. Kalau dosennya galak kita kabur, tapi kalau dosennya keren kayak Profesor Aula dan juga Profesor Ahmad Sofyan juga pasti kita semangat kuliah ya Pak Kapus ya. Demikian Bu Meisha.
Okay, Mrs. Regar, there's last one question. Can you accept it?
Sure. Silakan. Mudah-mudahan waktunya nggak over ya.
It's from Haikal from Binus University.
UI, Haikal. Excellent.
So you mentioned that Indonesia will be a leader in human resources in 2045 in terms of quantity. How do you make sure that Indonesia also meet the standards of quality of human resources in order to prevent Indonesia simply being a source of hard labor and not professional labor?
Absolutely. I mean, like, thank you very much, Haikal. Ya, Pak Takdir, gini standar nih kita selalu jual. We always say we have the demographic dividend. Tapi di saat apa namanya mau R&D, BRIN BRIN dijadikan satu bidang gitu ya, sampai apa namanya BPPK aja berubah jadi BSKLN. This is a logic ya. Sometimes we really have to be proud in our hard work, in our research, and in our respect for other work, yeah, but never feel timid, never feel easily satisfied. And as Haikal said, the very key question, yeah, we're not the same. We're not going to be migrant workers, yeah, in 2045, inshallah, yeah. And again, we don't of the 80 million demographic dividends for the next 25 years. You don't all have to be professionals, but you need to have a particular passion, yeah, a skill. I mean, like. Disitulah you are the force. Yang saya tahu tuh BINUS tuh nggak pernah demo, Pak Takdir. Itu ada larangan tuh. Kalau BINUS itu kalau kena demo itu langsung dipecat, bapaknya harus bayar 2 kali tuh. Jadi ya waktu 2000 berapa Pak Takdir ya, undang-undang apa tuh? Undang-undang Omnibus Law itu ingat nggak tuh semuanya pada demo? Saya bangga banget tuh BINUS tuh yang menahan diri. Nah, itu that kind of ini ya Pak Takdir ya. Semangat BINUS itu untuk being the leader, you really have to guide this work together. I know OE is also amazing, but you're the next generation. Yeah. You have to have added value. You have to have networks. And at this point, with social media, you have to use that to connect. So I encourage you, as you approach 2045, of the 80 million supposed demographic dividends, most of them will have a different fate. But at least the 80 students here, yeah, with the support of KJRI, the support of KBRI, and of course the support of BISKLN and Kemlu, we can give you a fast path, a leadership program. Jadi, as much as you're concerned about the quality, something will happen, ya. Something will happen di mana Vietnam will have a trough, Malaysia juga akan menghadapi tantangan, even Australia, ya. I hope you have the hunger to continue to improve yourselves, and I think disitulah Pak Takdir, ya. I think disinilah Kemlu plays an important role in empowering the youth. Jadi that demographic dividend Pak Kapus itu sebenarnya kalau ada bukan career program ya, tapi lebih kepada insight, foresight, dan juga pemberdayaan dosen-dosen seperti Ibu Aurora atau Pak Ahmad Sofyan to see the future. Where will America be? So if you know the future, you will not be content with the current. You won't. Yang pasti saya yakin teman-teman BINUS nggak akan kejebak dengan politik 2024 ya, mau pilih grup mana, mau pilih di mana, because it distracts you. And di sini anak-anak, jadi sedikit nih Mbak Meisha, Permias di Houston sama Permias di Atlanta beda. Permias di Atlanta itu semuanya orang fintech, benar-benar mereka mikirnya tuh making the new program. Kalau Permias yang di West Coast mungkin berat juga tuh cobaannya ya, banyak lot of fun. Even Permias atau PPI di Melbourne, but kalau Permias di Houston, they're all working. So this kind of movement ya Pak Takdir ya, how do we get our youth to think like Elon Musk? Bahkan kemarin Pak Dubes bilang kalau mau kuliah di Amerika nggak usah balik, as long as you contribute value ya. Today's network is more important than being physically in Indonesia. So I hope that give you some ideas, Meisha dan Haikal. Again, I'm so inspired to see you, and I hope that you can stay in contact with me. Please email me or WhatsApp me. Kalau misalnya mau magang atau mau berkunjung atau pengen do joint research, yang pasti Pak Takdir, I welcome you, Bapak, to see the Indo-Pacific era of Indonesia, US, and even Australia dari kacamata orang Houston. Karena right now everyone's focusing on space. Kemarin baru diluncurkan to Artemis 1. What does it mean for you? What's the business? Are you going to be part of are you going to be an astronaut, or are you just going to supply the raw materials, or even some other industries that support the space program? So itu aja yang ingin saya share. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much, Meisha. Pak Takdir, thanks for being so patient, Pak Takdir, listening to my views, and again, thanks a lot.
Pak Konjen is a very good and enthusiastic speaker, so you're lucky having with him.
Saya belajar dari Pak Takdir nih, tapi ya Pak Takdir kita beruntung nih karena Meisha itu yang nanya tuh juga bagus-bagus. Jadi kita bawanya jadi sedikit excited gitu ya, kalau udah Meisha nanya pertanyaan kita jadi pengen jawab sebaik-baiknya.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Regar. I hope you enjoyed your time here.
Thank you, Pak Konjen.
Thank you.
Take care, Pak Kapus. Thanks, Meisha.
Thank you. All right, following Mr. Siregar, now we move forward to our second honorable speaker. He is the recently officiated Professor of Business University Business Law Department, our very own Professor Siddhartha S.H.M. Professor Siddhartha is a permanent lecturer in the Legal Studies program in the Department of Business Law, Business University, who specializes in the study area of legal philosophy and legal reasoning. He has emerged as a respected legal expert in Indonesia and has contributed to important legal decisions in several cases in Indonesia. At today's international conference, he will be presenting his material presentation titled Strengthening Legal Cooperation as a Response to the Decline of State Sovereignty. Good afternoon, Professor Siddhartha. Truly honored to have you here with us. How are you today, Professor?
Good, Meisha.
Okay. Okay, Prof, I'm delighted to hear that. I hope Professor Siddhartha is always in good health. Very well, Professor Siddhartha, we have 20 minutes to present. Whenever you're ready, the floor now is yours.
Yeah. May I have access to share screen? Okay. Sorry. Thank you, everybody, distinguished speakers, Pak Siregar, Pak Takdir, Bu Rita Amalia, my fellow lecturers, all students, and also the participants. Good morning and good evening for Pak Takdir in Houston, Texas. This seminar takes topics related to international business law. On the other hand, my area of expertise is legal philosophy. Therefore, in this presentation, I would like to raise the topic of the philosophical aspect of business activities on a global scale. The issue that I would like to discuss is about strengthening legal cooperation as a response to the decline of state sovereignty. Okay, let me review this one. Okay. What is called the decline of state sovereignty thesis also intersects with the decline of sovereign state thesis. State sovereignty is a classic issue that continues to emerge, especially in legal philosophy discourses. This is partly driven by an important question regarding what is the basis for the binding force of law. The theory of state sovereignty is one of the proposed answer to that question. According to this teaching is initiated in the 19th century, the law is binding because it is desired by the state. It can be understood that the 19th century was the period when the growth of national states or nation state in the European region after the end of the power of the Western Roman Empire. Without the states, there is no law. Law is a state formation. The state has supreme power within its territory, including determining what constitutes law and how to interpret that law. In subsequent development, the doctrine of state sovereignty began to be challenged for its absoluteness. International law, which incidentally is etymologically taken from the word internation, in fact, no longer recognizes the state as the only legal subject. In addition, various protocols that apply in the realm of international law also limit the absolute power of the state within the territory of the country. After 2 centuries, the full sovereignty of the country is increasingly fading because the state has to lower its bargaining power in dealing with the large corporation that become investors. However, the first half of the 21st century has shown an interesting trend with the emergence of digital platforms. The digital platform companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet or Google, and Facebook. They come with capabilities that exceed the previous generation of corporations, consisting of around 200 companies, as the real rulers of the world, because they have the ability to control a quarter of the world's economic activities. With such a large-scale economy, the world's corporations have become a magnet to be invited on the red carpet. Laws and regulation are designed to support policies to invite these investors. The benchmark used in the Index of Ease of Doing Business released by the World Bank, for instance, in 2020, Indonesia only been ranked 73rd in the world, and it is hoped that in 2020 or 2023, it can jump to the 40th. The presence of law number 11 of 2020 concerning job creation is understandable from this aspect. Such a phenomenon is certainly predictable and not unique to Indonesia. We can say that almost all countries in the world have experienced reduced sovereignty when dealing with the new giants represented by the world's corporation. Its influence even raises the powerlessness of official institutions to participate in controlling what may and may not be done within the territory of a country. This presentation will show an example that is close to our daily activities, such as watching a movie. We can see, for instance, okay, let's change this. The next slide. Yeah. What is called the decline of state sovereignty also intersect with the decline of sovereign state thesis. If one examines carefully, especially what happened in Indonesia, a number of characteristics of this reduction can be identified. First, there are institutions that are given authority by the state, but these institutions are fading in their prestige. They are becoming increasingly unknown to the public. They still exist, but their role is not taken into account. Second, the birth of new self-regulatory institutions. We can say here in Indonesia, there are a lot of self-regulatory institutions now. These institutions exist outside the official structure of the state or government, so they may not be received juridical legitimacy, but they are accepted sociologically or pragmatically, at least by the community concerns. This, the third one, the new institution mentioned earlier do not have to carry a certain national flag because they can operate across countries. And fourth, when a corporation when a comparison is made between official state institution and this self-regulatory institution, it is immediately apparent that the latter institution has an appeal because it's able to work efficiently and not be bureaucratic. Even more extreme is that the reduction or decline of state sovereignty may manifest into a total loss of the function of the authority itself. This means that there are official state institutions that have lost their function and role in the public eye, but at the same time, the public does not consider it is important to have alternative institutions to replace the function left by state institutions that have official authority. Then, is there a concrete example of the above symptom in the Indonesian context? Yeah, we can point to a simple example by looking at the fate of the authority of the censorship institution, which was once heavily relied upon. Previously, films circulating in cinemas and television could only be watched after passing through a censorship process by the Film Censorship Institute, or SF, Lembaga Sensor Film. If we still have time to come to watch a movie in a cinema, practically during the COVID-19 pandemic, it is recommended not to do this. Yeah, then all spectators will still be given information that the film passed the LSF censor. We won't get this censor if we switch to watching movies on Netflix and Iflix, for instance. Even though LSF screams for this authority, the streaming service management company remained unmoved, and the state was powerless to force this. Yeah, there is also no guarantee that if the authority of the LSF is added to the law, then the LSF will be able to carry out the duties properly. If LSF is able to censor film circulating in a number of media, then the public will again be offered new access to watch films that have not been touched by LSF scissors. Yeah, films and videos circulating on YouTube, for example, practically will not be able to be touched by LSF. It is true that one of the reasons for maintaining the existence of LSF in this case is the shadow of our concerns about the negative impact of pornographic materials, for instance. Yeah, when law number 44 of 2008 concerning pornography was promulgated on November 26, 2008, there were consideration that pornography had and was threatening the life and social fabric of Indonesian society. For these reasons, through this law, the state must prevent the development of pornography and the commercialization of sex in society. At the same time, information and communication technology is developing super powerfully. The pornography industry and the commercialization of sex in society have also been boosted by the use of information and communication technology. If in the past, people had to work hard to get information about sexual activity, now everything is very easy to present. It is true that the country is not standing still. Yeah, statistically, the government can show that several sites containing pornographic content have been blocked. However, like flood, yeah, this blocking action was like spraying a bucket of water on a sea of fire that was burning a building. Yeah, this is where we see how state sovereignty has been embodied. Yeah. Finally, the country seems to give up on this condition. Everyone can do a simple experience by typing a few keywords into Google and YouTube to find out how many of these sites are produced and how easily accessible the pornographic videos, for instance. Yeah. Then can we still declare that the pornography law has teeth in Indonesia? Once again, that the reduction of state sovereignty has made the statutory orders not have enough energy. Indeed, this phenomenon is not unique in Indonesia. Bearing in mind that the wave of information via social media has crossed national territorial boundaries, without being able to be stopped by any authority. The only way to stem it, it is to be abolished the technology-based communication network, something that is definitely impossible for every country that upholds human rights of expression and obtaining information. If state sovereignty is no longer able to be used as an instrument to overcome it, then the approach may very well require a change in the form of public education. Bearing in mind that the most vulnerable consumer of pornography to be affected are children, naturally it is to them that this education must first be addressed. The function of the states is to become a filter, thereby changing it to function as an educator. Society is allowed to mature and have self-reliance. Such policies and action certainly require time and hard work, but they must be implemented. It is possible for the sovereignty of the country to be forced to implement it through a legal approach. We can ask this, yeah? From the result of a quick search on YouTube that was done, it appears that sites like this were created with the motive of obtaining financial support from advertisers. What's interesting is that the advertisers generally come from the same type of product and services, such as games, yeah, investment, and cosmetic applications, yeah, which are almost all targeted at number under the age of 25. Yeah. Here, a small loophole for state sovereignty can actually still play a role, namely by placing control over these companies. Companies that advertise must comply with advertising ethics. Even though the ethics were not compiled by the state, there are laws and regulations that provide severe sanction for violation. In a broader scope, the lack of public education program correlates with low digital literacy. On the monitor screen, I saw that in Indonesia, there are many higher education institutions that should be invited to participate in the digital literacy program in Indonesia. If we return to an alternative known as public education, then the pattern of education that is applied can be started with simple steps. More or less the same as the government restricting the movement of tobacco companies, yeah, to spread smoking habits, especially among teenagers. The tobacco industry is still allowed to advertise as long as it insert public education by stating that smoking can cause various diseases. This means that business actors are allowed to temporarily exist to advertise themselves on site that the government has not had time to close. Yeah? The condition is by inserting public education in them. Because they have not been closed, the content of such sites, I mean in websites for instance, yeah, is interpreted as being within tolerance limits according to the provision of the pornography law. Of course, the offer to invite Google or YouTube along with advertiser companies to be involved in public education will be open to debate about its effectiveness, considering that basically these companies are not business actors who are fully willing to submit to any state control. This is where coordination between Indonesia and other authorities outside Indonesia is required. However, it should be noted that whether in this country there is an authority that really has sufficient authority to make decisions and develop joint programs. Another thing is the technical of difficulties in sorting out the website, for instance, that are tolerable and intolerable. This the benchmark used by Indonesia is not necessarily the same as South Korea, India, the United States, and the European Union. The situation is very different from public education about the dangers of smoking. Yeah, for instance, if I mentioned about the tobacco advertisement, for instance, in almost all countries, the anti-smoking tobacco movement has a strong resonance and can even influence legislation. Cigarette advertisements are practically not found to appear vulgar by showing the physical appearance of the cigarette. More and more public spaces are required to be smoke-free. Yeah, movement and support like this have not happened in the context of pornography. Not to mention, if we talk the interest of certain countries related to the income derived from the pornography industry, yeah, I can say that many countries benefit from this. Yeah, entertainment sector revenue statistics for the United States, for instance, saw pornography as an important contributor. Thus, the attitude of the state, which is powerless toward the phenomenon of the existence of pornography, is various media today, may be an interesting example that can be shown to prove the thesis of reducing state sovereignty. I have a statistic about the amount of state revenue derived from the presence of pornography in the entertainment industry. However, due to the time constraint, I will not show in this presentation. Now, we can ask, how should the law take a stand? For the science of law, the reduction of state sovereignty as a concrete example has been given at length, yeah, in the description above. Yeah, it's a phenomenon that have a real wide impact, at least in three respects as described. Yeah, I want to describe below. The intended impact has both theoretical and practical dimension. First, related to legal sources, in the last few decades, legal sources in the formal sense have expanded. Presumably, it is no longer enough for the current generation of students to be taught that the only sources of law are law or undang-undang, yeah, or laws, yeah, custom, treaties, or jurisprudency or judicial lawmaking and doctrine. The sources of law do not only increase in terms of quantity, but also in terms of the variety of its source. For example, what is called legislation is no longer limited to regulation made by the three-state power known as theory of trias politica. Yeah? The presence of non-structural government institution with various names, for example, commission. Yeah, in Indonesia there are a lot of commission. Yeah, in some cases has the power to produce regulation for themselves. That's what we call as self-regulatory. As long as these regulations are binding and have an impact on the public, then all of them can be classified as a statutory regulation. However, it should be noted that because these commissions position themselves as holders of public sovereignty, it is possible that a reduction in state sovereignty also befalls them. In the example above, it was shown at length what happened to the lembaga sensor film. Yeah, a similar trend can also be shown to occur in, for example, the Indonesian Broadcasting Commission atau Komisi Penyiaran Indonesia, which also does not have an extension to reach out the broadcasting model via social media platform. that are currently widespread. Another trend is that the existence of autonomous legislation in the format of a code of ethics or code of conduct for certain profession has also been taken into account in making legal decisions. In the case of pornography appearing in advertisement, for example, it is very likely that the processing of the case will start from the Indonesian advertising ethics, or Etika Pariwara Indonesia, which is the result of an agreement by a number of associations of advertising activities. When the Indonesian people enter and are co-opted into the digital world, the source of law in the form of guide law or model law will be even more wide. The parties involved in the dispute are unlikely to look at the positive law as a country as a source of law. They will adhere to the guidance given by these guidelines in resolving cases that occur. Second, related to legal function, legal science recognizes at least three important functions of law, namely as a dispute resolution, guardian of social order, and social engineering. In an era when the reduction of state sovereignty occurs, the legal function that plays the most role in the short-term function. This is understandable because the function of law is very easy to get caught up in pragmatism in the era of digital society, which is sweeping all corners of the words pragmatism, like to use that momentary and short-term lens. I think I want to show this, the latest theory. This the third issue I want to mention. It's about the legal strategy. Problem in law enforcement will increasingly drift into discourse about the factor of means of law. Here we enter the technological aspect of the legal strategy. What was initiated by Lessig, Lauren Lessig, with element of technology architecture, as previously stated, is closely related to this strategy. When a technology is built and introduced to the public, this technology must be immediately investigated regarding the value that accompany it. The assumption that technology is value-free is, again, no longer valid. I think that's why we need a cooperation among nations to control the architecture of our technology. So law can be hand in hand with the technology to control the development of the technology. I think I can go to the conclusion because Mesia, I still have until.
I still have time, Prof.
Okay, good. The conclusion, I will go to the conclusion. Before bringing this presentation to a close, I would like to highlight what I have to discuss this morning. The reduction of state sovereignty as a global phenomenon that all legal functionaries, if I mention legal functionaries, it includes academicians and also legal practitioners, must begin to observe. Awareness of this phenomenon can be easily shown by example along with the increasingly widespread use of digital technology in all areas of human lives. Because the law on the one hand is a product of political power represented by a sovereign state, the impact of reducing state sovereignty will certainly hit the law. This means that the reduction of state sovereignty will in turn have an impact on the reduction of the role of law as well. All we have to do now is to face it with resignation or make an effort to minimize the negative effects as much as possible. Activists and observers of legal science are certainly called upon to reflect, behave, and act to work around this. I think that's all my presentation. Thank you, Mesia.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Siddhartha, for the extraordinary presentation. Thank you once again, Prof. Okay, a reminder to all participants who may have some questions, please write it in the chat box with your name and to whom the question is addressed to. And please turn on your camera and do not leave the Zoom because there will be an exit ticket at the end of our event today. Thank you. Okay, very well then. I'm delighted to announce our third speaker of today's international conference, the Honorable Dr. Prita Amalia, SHMH. Dr. Prita is a permanent lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Pajajaran University since 2006 and earned her doctorate degree in 2020 with cum laude predicate through her dissertation entitled Legal Concept of Investor-State Dispute Settlement in International Security Dispute Settlement on Aircraft for Indonesia Economic Development. Her research interests are in the fields of national and international arbitration law, international enforcement law, international trade law, international economic law, aircraft financing based on the 2001 Cape Town Convention, and infrastructure law. At today's international conference, she will be presenting her material presentation titled Trends in Choosing Arbitration. Good afternoon and welcome, Dr. Amalia. Very honored to have you here with us. How are you, ma'am?
Thank you very much, Meisha, as moderator. Thank you very much for the introductions. It is also an honor for me for being here. Thank you for having me in this very wonderful conference.
Okay, ma'am. Very well, Dr. Amalia, your time is 20 minutes to present. Whenever you're ready to start, the floor now is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. And good evening to Pak Konjen, Pak Andre. It's an honor for me for being here as one of the speaker, and my gratitude also to Pak Profesor Siddhartha, Pak Kapus, Pak Takdir, my mentor in the investment. We often to discuss about the outward investment last year, and also Pak Zaki, my colleague, my best friend. Thank you very much to having our department, Transnational Business Law Department at the Faculty of Law Universitas Pajajaran as one of the co-hosts in this wonderful conference. The first conference, international conference on transnational business and technology law on 2022. And of course, for all the committee, all the participants of the international conference, thank you very much. And hopefully my sessions, because the first sessions delivered by Pak Konjen is very interactive, very comprehensive, and very in Indonesia terpesona dengan presentasi Pak Konjen, very insightful, Pak, very comprehensive, and also following with Professor Siddhartha with the presentations with the legal philosophy. For me, this is very important to introduce about the transnational business for our students. So many fundamental aspects, so many important things that we need to deliver to the student to remind them how to being focused on the transnational business law. And actually my today presentations about the trends in choosing arbitrations, because this is the opportunity from Pak Zaki. I'm also serving as a chair on, we have the new association for the academicians and practitioners for the arbitrations and ADR, who established on last month, 20 October. And now we have so many academicians and practitioners in the arbitrations. Related with our theme about the G20 presidency, Indonesia on G20, and also we understand from Pak Konjen presentations how the trade and investment cooperation need to encourage, and hopefully after the G20, we have numbers of points that we need to have a concern how to promote trade and investment cooperations. and included on how reducing fragmentations and enacting the multilateral or plurilateral investment agreement. As we know that our country, our Indonesia, very active on the investment activities and trade activities, and their activities will be delivered on the instrument called contract or the treaties. And actually, I'm asking to being a last speaker, Pak Takdir, because usually dispute resolutions is always at the end of the document. So to conclude the sessions or to conclude the document, but then hopefully this is also could coverage the dispute resolutions that maybe will be related with Pak Takdir presentations after this. So if I may share my screen. As it's already present, Meisha?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Thank you very much. In this opportunity, allow me to introduce our department to Pak Konjen, Professor Siddhartha, and all the lecturers that attend this conference, and also to Pak Takdir. This department is the youngest department in our faculty. This department established in 2019 to respond to the development of law in globalization's era, economic and international trade issue, as well as international commercial arbitrations. So for your information, that arbitration course in our faculty is a compulsory subject. All the students should take this course, not only the students from the Transnational Business Law Department. And the focus of the course included not only national arbitrations, but also international commercial arbitration, as well as the investment arbitrations. And this is a numbers of the course that we have in our department. After the arbitrations and ADR law, we have also international trade law, or in other university, we understand as the WTO law, because here the focus is on the WTO agreement on international trade law, and also the international trade law from the ASEAN framework. We have the international economic law as a compulsory subject for the student who take the Transnational Business Law Department. And we have international investment law, which discuss numbers of the standard of the investment protections, of the also we now included OE Pak Takdir in our syllabus, since I think this is something that we need to introduce also to the students instead of the inward investment. And international contract law together with the drafting contract. So related with my presentations about the trends in choosing arbitrations, actually the idea is to give informations or to understand how the arbitration is developed in our country, in Indonesia. First of all, we understand that the arbitrations as one of the alternative, it means that not a main dispute settlement. It's understand also as an alternative, but I think now the arbitration as method of dispute settlement has developed significantly. It is also in line with numbers of the treaties that have with other country. This is also in line with the numbers of the commercial contract containing arbitration clause in their contract. And from the commercial activities, investment activities, this is also give the influence in the developing on the commercial arbitrations and the investment arbitrations. Globalizations of world trade and investment has also resulted increasingly, and this is give the influence to harmonizing the arbitration practices around the world. We understand that so many laws that we need to consider in the arbitration proceedings, not only the rules or the procedural rules, but also there's a numbers of the law, such as arbitration law, and the numbers of the governing law that chosen by the parties, or we also found it as a law of the parties. Many instruments in arbitrations, how the UNCITRAL, United Nations Commercial International Trade Law, has a model law on international commercial arbitration, has amended on 2006, and so many countries use this model law as one of the harmonizations of the international commercial arbitrations in practice. Even Indonesia have law number 13, 1999, but then Indonesia still not yet adopted the UNCITRAL model law. But Indonesia has so many experience in international commercial arbitrations, as well as with the international investment arbitrations. And with this development, we also understand that numbers of the institutional arbitration also growing. Before we only understand or we only known about the BANI, Badan Arbitrase Nasional Indonesia, but then I think there are so many institutional arbitrations in Indonesia, specifically with the object of the dispute, and maybe also related with the who is the associations or organizations who established the arbitrations as one of the method to strengthening the organization, to strengthening the body of institutions. And why the arbitrations? I think we also familiar with the advantage of arbitrations as method of dispute settlement, how we can understand that the connections between quality of arbitrators with the quality of decisions making is something that arbitration has as one of the characteristic. The arbitrators here is not always from the law background, but the arbitrators here is someone that has a competency. So not only law or a lawyer could be the arbitrators, but the arbitration award could also produced by the arbitrators with their competency. And also the confidentiality is something that arbitrations has. The characteristic of the arbitrations, we could not have the confidentiality, or we could not found the confidentiality as one of the strong characteristic in the other method of dispute settlement. And sometimes because the commercial arbitrations is always related with the business activity, confidentiality also related with the reputations of the business of the parties. The development of arbitrations also improve the standardizations of international arbitration practices is there. When the international arbitration practices become more certainty and more confidence, the stakeholders or the business entities not doesn't have any yes, I mean like they more certainty to choose arbitration as one of their as the method of dispute resolutions. So by this argument, why arbitrations is now become more developed, become more accepted by all the stakeholders as one of the method of dispute resolutions. I think the characteristic of the arbitration still consider to be one of the method of dispute settlement. And this is the future of arbitration, something that the arbitrations is improved. How we understand that the use of arbitrations as method dispute settlement is increased in numbers of the contract, in numbers of the sectors such as energy, or in the constructions project, in the infrastructure. For me, the constructions and the infrastructure is something we need to make a differences in the infrastructure. If I may give an example, currently our country has a number of the infrastructure project that one of the scheme of investment that choose by the parties or choose by the government is PPP or KPBU, kerjasama pemerintah badan usaha, or public-private partnership that regulated under the government regulation number 38 2015. This is also one of the scheme of investment that will be the referred for establish the new capital country in Nusantara. And I think this is something that we need to make a differentiation, because infrastructure not only about the contract, but also about numbers of the investment. This is also related with numbers of the regulation that has or the number of the regulations that related with the investment and the infrastructure. And this is something that we call it as an upstream contract, and the constructions is something that we call it as downstream contract. So I think we need to give more concern on this, since the infrastructure project is something that become focused by the government in the upstream contract that developed by the government and the private entities. They also use arbitrations as a method of dispute settlement in their contract. And of course, in the constructions project, or we could also familiar with the Jasa Konstruksi by law number 2 on 2017. In the other sectors, we also understand that arbitration used as a method of dispute settlement in the technology, in the banking, industry, and finance sectors. In Indonesia, we have also Lembaga Alternatif Penyelesaian Sengketa Jasa Keuangan. Previously, we familiar with LAPSP, but now they rename or become transformations, become a new institutions, and the name is LAPSJK. Previously, we don't have BAPMI or BAPMI, Badan Arbitrase Pasar Modal Indonesia, is something different with the LAPSP, but now every kind of the institutional arbitrations or the method of or the institutional dispute settlement that already established in Indonesia, now integrated in LAPSJK. And second, the use of arbitrations as investor-state disputes in the future is also something that need our concern, since the investment activity also there. And I think this is in line with the potential dispute that we need to mitigate, how we could understand the concept of investor-state dispute settlement instead of the commercial dispute. For me, commercial dispute and the investment dispute is something different. Maybe in this conference, we could discuss also about how we could identify investment dispute and the commercial dispute, since commercial dispute is something purely B2B or business activities, but sometimes about the investment dispute, this is something that the dispute could be raised from the executions of the government regulations. Or we could also consider the Article 25 from the Washington Conventions as a legal basis of the ISDS concept. Washington Convention also one of the also the convention established the International Center of Settlement Investment Dispute, or we familiar with ICSID, when there is a numbers of the factor that conclude, or we could consider when there is exists the ISDS. One is the investment dispute, second there is a protected investment, and third is there is a protected investor. So I think this is something that we have to bear in mind, that we need to prepare to what extent that we understand about the investment activity. For example, the standard of the investment protections, such as fair and equitable treatment, legitimate expectation as one of the principle that also discussed in the INFA cases that included Indonesia, and we are successful to win this case. And full protection security or expropriations, or now if not familiar with the direct expropriations, I think we need also to consider the indirect expropriation. So the investment arbitration is something that I think all the students need to fulfill the knowledge or need to give more concern on that as well, instead of the commercial dispute. And third, the use of technology in arbitration procedures. Pandemic COVID give us so many things. We learned so many things from the pandemic COVID. Online hearing, virtual hearing rooms, video conferencing is something now that we have in the arbitrations proceeding. Previously, maybe this is something not familiar for us, but I think now numbers of the institutional arbitrations complete their rules on how to conduct the online hearing, virtual hearing rooms, or video conferencing. The use of technology also increase the efficiency of the arbitrations. I think this is one of the factor to strengthening the advantage of arbitrations as well. The development of arbitral institutions also give the influence to the future of international arbitrations and how so many arbitral institutions now, specifically with the related with the object of the dispute. Of course, since the arbitration is developed, this is also expected to be greater competitions in this field. However, the numbers of arbitrators is still limited. So I think this is one of the opportunity for us to give the concern or to being an arbitrators with the very specific competency, not only from the law background, but also from the others backgrounds. I think the point is when we have a case or we being an arbitrators, I think we could not only see the cases from the law perspective, but also need to look this case from the other perspective, such as economics, financial perspective, industry perspective, and so on. This is something that I think this survey is regularly conducted by the Queen Mary University with the School of International Arbitrations. And what I would like to deliver in this presentations is how to answer the trends on choosing arbitration now is still growing. From this survey, they have a numbers of questions, and this is the conclusions. The conclusions of the survey. There are 6 points, and in this presentations, I have also put the graphic, the graphic to show us how the numbers of the survey for each factor. First, the question is about how international arbitrations is being a preferred method of resolving cross-border dispute. From the all respondent, 19% respondent answer the institutional arbitrations is still as a preferred method of resolving cross-border dispute, even with only the arbitrations or standalone basis or conjunctions with the ADR. So I think this is very important numbers here that we have understand that international arbitrations is still popular. Second is about the seat of arbitrations. So the responder have a questions, what is the most preferred seat for arbitrations? And the 5 most preferred seats for arbitrations in this survey, there are 5 country: London, Singapore, Hong Kong, Paris, and Geneva. And we can see the other set of arbitrations that choose by the respondent after this. The survey also provide what is the key adaptations on how the stakeholder or how the respondent choose that kind of the country for being as their being the seat of arbitrations. First, there are 3 the 3 point, the important point. First, the greater support for arbitration by local courts and judiciary. Second, increase the neutrality and impartiality of the local legal system, and also how the country have a better track record in the enforcing agreement to arbitrate and arbitral awards. So if all the students have a questions why we don't have Indonesia here, so I think we need to consider, or we could also use this key adaptation to improve how we could also attract our client maybe in the future to choose Indonesia as seat of arbitrations along with other country, the most popular, the most preferred by the all stakeholders such as London, Singapore, Hong Kong, Paris, and Geneva. And the fourth question is, what is the most popular regime for the arbitrations? As we know that arbitration, there are two forms. First, the institutional arbitrations, and second, the ad hoc arbitrations. And the, yes?
Dr. Prita, your time is 2 minutes left.
Okay. And the most popular regime for ad hoc arbitrations, since for the ad hoc arbitrations, the parties choose the law of the parties include the rules. The institutional arbitration rule is the most popular regime for the ad hoc arbitrations. And the fifth factors, when this responder asking about what is the most preferred arbitral institutions, this is the 5 most preferred arbitral institutions by according to the survey. First is ICC, International Chambers of Commerce. Second is SIC. Third is Hong Kong International Arbitrations Center. Fourth is LCAA, and 5 is the CETAC in China. And this is something that new from the survey is how the use of technology, the virtual reality in the arbitration practice, because this survey is conducted in 2021, then this is in the pandemic era. And based on the survey, that the use of technology is also developed. There are 3 forms how the technology used in the arbitration proceeding. First is in the virtual hearing. Second is in the concept of green document. It means that, as we know that when we have an arbitration proceeding, there are so many documents that we need to exercise. But then in this green document, it means that all the document is provided in a soft copy to consider with the environment issue, green project, and so forth. And third is about the data protections and cybersecurity. This is something that I think in Indonesia is something new. Now we have the law on data protections. So following my presentation, there's numbers of the graphic that would be the support explanations from the previous presentations. But I think I would like also to provide this graphic as well to give informations. What about our national arbitrations institutions, or BANI? This is data that we have from BANI in the previous event. This from the 100%, this is the percentage for the national arbitrations or domestic arbitrations and international arbitrations in BANI. National arbitration or domestic arbitration is still dominant in BANI, 89.87%, and for foreign or international arbitrations is 10.13%. But what I would like to say here to all students that sometimes we confusing does BANI, or we always asking does BANI could also examine the international arbitration or not? The answer is yes, because international arbitrations is not about how the institutions is overseas or outside the Indonesia, but international arbitrations is how the arbitrations have an international character, such as the place of business, the performance of the contract, when the cases related with the numbers of a legal system, and something that we could found in the UNCITRAL model law on international commercial arbitrations. I think that's all from me, Meisha. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and looking forward for any kind of questions or concern related with the arbitrations, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your amazing presentation regarding the trend in choosing arbitration, Dr. Amalia. Okay, next, continue on to our fourth and last honorable speaker of today's international conference. Let me introduce the Honorable Mr. Muhammad Takdir Eshak. Mr. Muhammad Takdir serves as Director of Center for Policy Strategy of Asia Pacific and Africa at the Foreign Policy Strategy Agency, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Previously, he was at the Directorate General for Social and Cultural Relations, the Directorate General for Political Affairs, and the Secretariat General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Also previously held positions in the Economic Functions section of the Indonesia Embassy in Ottawa, Embassy and Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the United Nations in Vienna, Austria, and Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the United Nations in Geneva 2014 to 2018, and Director of Center for Policy Strategy of Asia Pacific and Africa 2021 to present time. At today's international conference, he will be presenting his material presentation titled Strategy, Boosting Economic Opportunity in a Global Uncertainty. Truly honored to have you here with us. How are you today, Mr. Takdir?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Okay, very well, Mr. Takdir. Your time is 20 minutes to present. Whenever you're ready, the floor now is yours.
Thank you, Mesa. It was always my pleasure to join the conference. But first of all, I would like to use this opportunity to greet the host, Professor Haryanto Prabowo, Rector BINUS, Ibu Dr. Elisa Caroline, the Dean of the Faculty, also Dr. Ahmad Sofian, Head of the BL Department, Profesor Siddhartha, dan juga Dr. Prita Amalia, and last but not least, my good friend, Pak Konsul Jenderal, Indonesian Consul General in Houston, Pak Andre Omer. This is a very good opportunity, I guess, to share my thought on the topic of the conference that assigned to be presented today in the last session. Usually in the last session, we are all exhausted, but I try to be awake just to make you, to bring you to a new perspective on this particular issue. I divide the content, the table of content into five segments. I hope I can finish this in 20 minutes, but I will do it quickly, slide by slide. Policy background, we start the policy background, a global challenge, and the implications and our response and research and development. I start with this. I think the illustration of monism and dualism will be the perfect picture of how we see the topic of international trade and investment. And if you see the concept of monisms and dualisms, in monism, we don't contest the national international law. It's kind of like integrated law because it sources from the similar sources. But in dualisms, you try to divide the international law and national law. I don't know Indonesia embrace which school of thought, whether monism or dualism. This is still ongoing debate in the national scholars in our country. In monisms, I think Professor Siddhartha exactly pointed out how these two concepts collide each other, because there is a decline of state sovereignty. You can see here between the right of investor and the right of the state in dualisms. We can also see I think the close example of these two concepts we can find in the WTO frame of regulations. There is a treaty in WTO where all members abide by their obligations and the right, but they also granted a special treatment, special condition in case national interest is predominantly would be at stake. So they have an opportunity to to provide a reasonable argument just to avoid the kind of obligation. We can see that in the investment related measures, where you can have like Indonesia actually do this implementing local content, yeah, and we can also see in the safeguard measures where members allowed to have certain restrictions on import material, but with the condition that the import will be hurting the national industry. So this is the kind of monism and dualisms. I think will shadow the implication or the implementation of our international trade relation or our investment relations. Now, with the policy of the prime policy background, I think I will stick with the national planning, where the mission is try to build or establish economic competitive economy and productive and independent economy. So this is a very important principle, I think. And in the priority of the foreign ministry, we also see the strengthening of the economic diplomacy. That's why you are hearing how Consul General in Houston tried to develop and bridge the economic relation between the United States as one of the very key player in the economy, world economy, and Indonesia as one of the other key players in the world economy. So every mission, every embassy, every consul general should embrace the mission of strengthen economic diplomacy by developing the relations in their accreditations. So with the United States, if they located in the United States, with the UK, if they are located in the UK. So everybody has an obligations to prioritize or materialize these four priorities of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the 2024. And for the diplomatic circle itself, you can see the work that we are doing is actually, and this has been demonstrated by our Consul General, representing, protecting, and negotiating. So the whole concept of legal obligation and legal rights should be protected by our representative. In any negotiation, we should be there. So the diplomat are the frontliner of the negotiations. So we are also need to be alert that every position we have is actually representing the state, not representing the ministry. When you are having relations with other states, meaning you are representing the state, not you are representing the foreign ministries, for example. So this is the three main tasks of the Indonesian diplomats. To give you also another illustration of how actually foreign ministry works, we can see from the this slide that the primary goal of the foreign ministries is actually to build what they call power play and instability. Yeah, if there is instability there, then we can push economic relation. If there is no stability there, then we may not have a very good economic relations. But the idea or the notion about between economy and politics is now lingering on our head, that which one is the most priority for our nations. But I think we will return that argument that you can't have the very smooth economic relations if the environment is very hostile to the economic objective that you are trying to reach. So that's why in the primary goal of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is try to establish the norm settings as a political tools, but at the same time, actually, this instrument try to push how we monetize the economic achievements. So I think there is no division there. There is a complement effort between the primary goal that we try to achieve and the the economic primary goal of the economy by the Minister of Trade or Minister of Investment, such as BKPM. And if you see the environment, the recent environment, strategic environment that Indonesia has, we are actually in the middle of epicentrum. That's why probably the reason why the minister tried to offer a tagline for the ASEAN Chairmanship 2023, epicentrum of growth, because we are in the middle of the growth actually. People say sometimes the rise of Asia refer to China. It is not actually. The rise of China very much refer to the rise of Indonesia, the rise of ASEAN, the rise of India. So along with the China, of course, but not dominantly the rise of Asia represent the rise of China. So we need to correct that, because sometimes is the misconception of the rise of China can be only represent the benefit that they can be taken by the China itself. So we have Indonesia, Korea, CEPA, Indonesia, Jepang, EPA, Indonesia, Australia, CEPA, and more recently, Indonesia initiated the idea of Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP. I think all members already, the 15 members already ratified. Indonesia, the last country that ratified the agreement this year. So hopefully next year, I guess we will see how this trade agreement will work. There are two actually interesting chapters in the RCEP. You can't find those chapters in the other trade agreement. The chapter about technical cooperation, and there's chapter about micro, medium, and small enterprise. So I think this is a kind of, I sometimes call it as a humanized trade agreement, where the capitalism is there, but they don't leave people as only as a subject of their trading. And the trend for the next 5-10 years, I think the emerging economies dominated by China, India, Indonesia, Brazil, Russia, and Mexico, I think will replace the G7. Yeah, the G7 now dominate the economic growth, but I think in the 2040, the rise of E7 will be one of the growth of engine or global engine in the world. This is due to the use of the technology driven productivity improvement in the emerging 7 countries, and that's why they can probably grow around twice as fast as average G7 countries. Indonesia would be in the number 4 positions among the emerging 7 countries, and I think it will give a great or global responsibility, because the economic size. We can see with China, the example of China, with the economic size that China has, they even can take direct benefit both in the political terms and economic terms in Africa. That's why if there is any nominations for position in international organization, I think most probably China will dominate the positions, and it's already proven. They have had the position in WTO, in WHO, in WIPO, in ITU, I think, because most of the China's company, especially Huawei, China Telecom, Unify, Dahua, working in most countries in Africa, but they develop what they call the China's infrastructure, meaning the China's built infrastructures to gain influence. So that's why the diction of the China's infrastructures is now kind of political term, but actually has economic, very huge economic implications. you can see most of the 54, I guess, countries in Africa, they will granted the approval and endorsement anytime China propose a nomination for certain position. Also, the position in the political affairs, they probably will get the endorsement from most of the countries in Africa. So when you have the economic size, you will have the global responsibility. The same with Indonesia. If Indonesia can be the fourth positions in the emerging countries, I think we will have a kind of similar global responsibility. And there is an interesting article, I think, this week in The Economist, where the title of the magazine, the economic magazines, put like this: the Asia's giant overlook. I don't know why they call Indonesia overlook. Is it because of all countries so far have overlooked Indonesia, or we are not able actually to represent or to give a very update development about ourselves? So that's why people consider us as a overlooked country. I think that's a very interesting article, and Venus student, even the lectures, I think should go reading. And this survey also emphasized how the economic economic capability that Indonesia has is not parallel with the diplomatic influence that we have seen increase year by year. But in terms of economic relation, in terms of economic capability, still stand still. And we need to upgrade this if we would like to have the kind of what I call the global responsibility. So if you have here the diplomatic influence raised plus 1.7, then meaning actually you should have the score for economic relation, which is 10 here in what is it? 12.3 economic relationship, and economic capability 9.0 is actually very lower score. So with the benefit that we have now from this G20, I think we will see whether we can update or upgrade the score that probably next year will be surveyed by Louis Institute. So the score will be positive here. There is an increase, a positive increase for the economic relationships and economic capability. The simple illustration is here. We spend like 2.5 trillion rupiahs for the undertaking the G20. But what we have in return, we have ExxonMobil and Partai Mana deal around 40 billion US dollar. You have Japan and US investment capital for allowing Indonesia to curb from the dependency of from coal sectors. It's I think 20 billion US dollars. So it's a very big achievement actually. If you see from the nominal or from the concept of monetizing, as I mentioned earlier. And our foreign policy is suitable with our foreign policy, current foreign policy, where President Jokowi really emphasized the down-to-earth diplomacy. Meaning, if we funding the consulate general in Houston, for example, if we funding the consul general in Houston or other embassy or missions all over the world, then the obligations, they have the obligations to materialize what kind of achievement or outcome of the relationship in very tangible result. So if, but the number is actually very small. This is also the problem. Indonesian government, I think, overlook the importance to have a very adequate funding for all our missions. All missions, embassies and consulate general in overseas, I think have a very small number of a small amount of funding for their any program or activities to boost economic relations. So, but here the reality here is that you have the money like in rupiahs probably I think 1.3 million rupiah or 2.3 million rupiah. Pak Konjen can correct me here if it is true. And then you have to bring investment like trillion rupiahs. How can you do that? So this is a challenge actually. That's why I think the Minister of Finance should understand this, the importance of having adequate funding for all our missions. That's why the president sometimes complain why in every promotion, in big promotions, Indonesians boat always in the corner, small boat, even close to the rest area. This because our small, very small funding. So if you want to reach a very good, what is it, very good result for the economy or in both in term investment or trade, then you need to have a very, I think, very good money on it. It's already proven with the undertaking of G20. You spend like 25 trillion rupees and then you get the result. Imagine if it is only like 200 million rupees. I don't think so. You can have a very big event here in Indonesia. The outline number 2, the global challenge. The global challenge actually can be divided into illusion and the reality of what we have now. This is what we are seeing, rivalry. Pak Konjen touched upon this rivalry between Indonesia, between China and the US. Me first policy. Every country sometimes what is it? Put first their national agenda. You can have like Donald Trump. What is it? Donald Trump, what they call American first, made the America great again, as if only America, only individual single countries can have the stage of the global stage. So I think me first policy will be we will see the me first policy always, I think, bold and circle our relations for the next 5 or 10 years. Trust deficit because of the rivalry and the me first policy then result in the trust deficit. Even the function of the global governance, the United Nations. This is all are we seeing, yeah. But we are actually hoping that Indonesia sometimes bring this idea. What they hope to see is collaboration, international cooperation, mutual respect, and blah blah blah. So the contest between the rivalry and the collaboration, me first policy and international collaboration, I think will overshadow the relationship, the international relationship of the global community for the last 5 to 10 years. The war, conflict, pandemic, this is a natural disaster. This is a day-to-day problematic global problem that we are confronting. Yeah, but I'm not really wondering why this happened, because if you see from the vulnerability mapping issued by Fund for Peace, most of the countries here in the map, the colors are red, meaning they have a alert or the list is warning. So if you see here all the countries here in Africa, most of them are red. I mean, they are very vulnerable. In Asia, even warning, a little bit warning, even the China, some of the ASEAN member countries too. So this is the picture where you have pessimistic view confirm that this is the vulnerability that we are maybe confronting for a long time, beyond 2023, I think, because of the situation. And it actually depends on the global governance, the democracy. This is the pictures here is confirmed by the Global Democracy Index. Only I think 6.4% country enjoy full democracy, but most of them are, if it is not authoritarian regime, hybrid regime, or pro democracy. the country that really enjoy full democracy, I think, it's only Australia and New Zealand. And this is the problem for us. The risk, global risk across the globe also frightening, because you can see here at the Korean Peninsula, South China Sea, or Taiwan Strait. So this is the pictures, the global challenge that I think you also will affect the trade relations, the investment relations between countries. We have seen from the Ukrainian crisis, I think present us with the what we call the quadrilateral shock, the food prices, crude oil prices, and shipping prices. All those sectors increase and burden the trading actors. Even we would like to have goods exported to China, then you have thinking about the shipping prices that goes crazy right now. So in Asia, and Asia itself have a, I think, potential place point that will troubling our relationship, even affected our position if we would like to achieve like the position, the fourth position in the E7 countries, because the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait and even Korean Peninsula, most of the parties involved there has nuclear warhead arsenal. They have nuclear weapons stockpile. Imagine if it is happening here in South China Sea between the United States and China, or in Taiwan between China and Taiwan and the United States and its allies, or in Korean Peninsula between North Korea and the US with its allies. All of these countries are having nuclear weapons stockpile. So the devastating result, I think, will be nightmare, even worsening than Ukraine. So I think we need to watch that. And for the time being, I think, and it brings us to the implication. What would be the implication? I think stagflation is a very what is it? Normal result that we are seeing right now. The stagflation, where inflation goes higher, unemployment ratio is down, is higher, and the economic growth is down, and also the inflation is higher. So I think most of the countries in the Western Hemisphere are confronting here right now. But Indonesia, we able to maintain 5.6 inflation, but I don't know later on. And from that situation, I think the question of supply chains disruptions is one of the problem that need to be addressed, because it related with the trader. If you have global supply disruptions, meaning you cannot trade well with the other parties. And that's, I think, if we see from the survey released by the European associations, 80% see the disruption as the major risk for the time being. But at the same time, because of the harsh situations, the industry also, excuse me?
I'm sorry, sir, but your time has come to an end.
Can I have just 2 minutes extra? Yeah, just to finish all. The industry consider the plus of the harsh situation emerge, where they would like to increase the inventory, a critical product, by having increasing inventory along the supply chains, and also regionalizing the supply chain, meaning they move the base from, like, for example, from Russia to Indonesia, for example, or like Australia for the the wheat. They move their base from Australia to Makassar, establish joint venture with the local industry. And this is our response, as I said, having the supply disruption, then we need to maintain or build the resiliency and try to diminish dependency. And I think we can see here between how the companies, foreign companies invest. There are two reasons for that. They consider you have the raw material supply or you have access to larger market. And Indonesia, from the sector of critical minerals, we have a lot of here critical minerals. Yeah, those critical minerals is important for electric vehicle, green technology, and defense even, and aerospace. And if you see from the electric vehicle, China dominated the electric vehicle, 60.5 million electric vehicle, where half of it are in the China's road, 60.5 million electric vehicle. And if the three components of the electric vehicles, lithium, cobalt, and nickel, coming from Indonesia, the nickel, meaning that the supply raw material are here. So actually, the China should move their base here if they want to have. Let take for instance, if they have problem with the Strait, Taiwan Strait later, they need to move here because of what? Because this is where the raw material and the market, yeah. And every electric vehicle component, this is the personal study. I'm doing the personal study on electric vehicle. Every component electric vehicle is actually you can find in Indonesia. Yeah, I don't have here, for example, aluminum, the amount of aluminum, but it detected, or we can find it in Papua, Sumatra, and Kalimantan. So the task of the government, I think, the ministry need to build study how to get the number of every material for electric vehicle, and I think that's confirm how we can build the what I call here the reason for company to invest because of those two consideration. Yeah, we know the other part of the consideration, for example, government guarantee or political stability or legal assurances is important, but I think those two elements, those two consideration about access to larger market and raw material supplies are the basic consideration for a foreign company to invest in certain country. I think I should stop here because my time is up. I back to moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the extraordinary presentation regarding strategy boosting economic opportunity in a global uncertainty. Thank you once again, Mr. Takdir. Okay, last reminder to all participants who may have some questions, please write it in the chat box with your name and to whom the question is addressed to. Thank you. All right, please give a round of applause to our four honorable speakers for their outstanding material presentations. Everyone can use a hand clapping reaction in your Zoom. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Siregar, Professor Siddhartha, Dr. Amalia, and Mr. Muhammad Takdir. Now, honorable participants and guest participants, before we continue on to the question and answer session, I would like to give the time back to the MC momentarily for the ice-breaking session. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and the speakers for the very insightful sessions. I'm certain all of us have learned a lot from the insights given. It is now time for us to ease a bit and have an ice-breaking session. For this ice-breaking session, we will have 4 questions regarding each of the materials that have been presented by the speakers. If you wish to answer the question, please type your answer through the Zoom chat box. The committee will choose the winners who answer the question most accurately. Keep in mind that we do have a prize for all the winners. Yes, there's more than one winner. So each of the winners, there will be 4 winners, will receive 50k rupiah each in the form of e-money. Without any further ado, let us start with the first question from Pa Andre's material. The question is, what is the foreign policy doctrine that is used by Jokowi? Anyone who wishes to answer can write your answer in the Zoom chat box. I repeat the question once again. What is the foreign policy doctrine that is used by Jokowi? Once again, anyone who wishes to answer can type your answer in the chat box. And please keep in mind that we do have a prize for all the winners, so it does give you a little bit benefit. Okay, so we have an answer here. Down to earth diplomatic policy. Is there anyone else who wishes to answer?
Is this questions addressed to me?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay.
It's for the participants. I'm sorry. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to answer the question? If not, we will move on to the second question, which is taken from Professor Siddhartha's material. The question is, what are the 5 sources of law? Anyone who wishes to answer can type your answer in the Zoom chat box. Okay, I see Felita has typed in her answer. Is there anyone else who wishes to answer the question? I will repeat the question once again. What are the 5 sources of law? Okay, if there are no more answers, we will go on to the third question from Dr. Prita Amalia's material. Name 3 of the most preferred seats for arbitration. I will repeat the question once again. Name 3 of the most preferred seats for arbitration. Keep in mind that we do have a prize for the winners, so you might want to answer the questions. Okay, I see an answer from Ida Hassan. Name 3 of the most preferred seats for arbitration. Is there anyone else who wishes to answer? Okay, if there are no more answers, we will move on to the last but not least question from Pak Muhammad Takdir's material. Name 3 countries who has a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Indonesia. I repeat the question once again. Name 3 countries who has a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Indonesia. You can type in your answer in the Zoom chat box. Okay, I see an answer from Rifki Aditya. Is there anyone else who wishes to answer? Okay, if there are no more answers, that is all for the ice-breaking questions. What a game. Thank you to everyone who has participated in the game. Okay, so judging from the correct answers given by the committee, we can say that the winners for the ice-breaking game are, congratulations to Haikal, Felita, Ida Hassan, and Rifki. You guys have won the ice-breaking game. Please wait for our committee to contact you to claim your prize. Once again, congratulations to the ice-breaking game winners. We would like now to invite the moderator back to guide us through the question and answer session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, MC. That was quite a fun ice-breaking session. Hope everyone had a good time and congratulations to the winners. Very well then, now we arrive at the question and answer session. Everyone, so far, there were some questions from the participants. First, for There are some questions for Professor Siddhartha. Professor Siddhartha, are you still here?
Okay.
Okay, Prof. First question from Haikal. Nowadays, big corporations are equal in power to states, which weakens their sovereignty. You mentioned state cooperation as one of the ways to strengthen state sovereignty against corporations. Can treaties or multilateral organizations be one of the state cooperation? What is the concrete example?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Prof.
Yes, I know that from Pak Takdir's presentation, we can see that the world's economic growth will Indonesia economic growth will occupy the fourth position in the world. So the big cooperation that I call the new ruler of the world will have their eyes on Indonesia. We can see China, for instance, with Huawei, China Telecom, the Hua, they play a very significant role as a backbone for their country. That's why I think Indonesia also needs the same position that can produce big companies like that. So, of course, as two private companies like Telkom from Indonesia, for instance, and China Telecoms, they can, of course, they can negotiate each other and can make a cooperation. We don't need any government to government as the platform, but also maybe the private to private, business to business. It can be, I think it can be very easily if they have a very the same position, equal position. That's why now Indonesia should make a good environment for the investment, also for the domestic player in Indonesia, to make them bigger, not only UMKM, for instance, but also we should give the opportunity for the bigger player in Indonesian economy. Of course, we need to create bilateral agreement, or we can go to the multilateral agreements to create a very conducive environment for our business player. I think Pak Takdir give us very optimistic overview about Indonesian future. But we need to accompany this development with a low foundation. That's why I think economy and law should be hand in hand in this condition. That's Haikal, I think.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Next question, the second question. How can we defend ideas related to sovereign states, especially Indonesia, in the midst of the many negative impacts of technology in gray areas? Example of cases such as legal protection in the crypto sector, example FTX crypto cases, etc. That's it, Prof.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the technological architecture. It's very simple to see how the technology will influence very much in our daily activities. For instance, if you ask our people to behave improper, when they drive car, for instance, this should use a safety belt. But if we rely on legal foundation or legal framework to educate them, I think it will take us a long time to make them will be accustomed to using safety belt, yeah, improper. But if we use technology, it's very simple. You cannot start the engine if you have not used the safety belt. So that's the architecture, what I mean. That's why if we can use law to make the technology can be the instrument of public education, so we can have the good legal culture, how to comply with law, for instance. I think it's more easily to do that. I hope I can answer Heikel's questions.
That's the last question for you, Professor Sudata. Thank you very much for the answer, Prof. Okay, the next question is for Mr. Takdir. From Dr. Prita, she asks, in regard with Indonesia as chair of ASEAN 2023, and the theme is epicentrum of growth, what is the message and the key point from this theme?
Yeah, I think if you study the tagline, seemingly people understood that this is only reflecting the idea of economic concentrations. Growth is about economy, but if you see the motives or the reason behind why Indonesia initiated the concept like Indo-Pacific outlook, yeah, it's a contest to the political spectrum where people say what I touched earlier, where people say that political and security first, then come second the economy. What Indonesia tried to offer the different outlook where they can say, if people prospers in the region, there will be no war, there will be no conflict. So that's the I think a very good response to the idea of the nation or the notion of put first the political and security considerations, because if everybody prospers and enjoy good life, economic life, you know, there will be no demonstration. I mean, everybody's calm down with the economic progress and blah, blah, blah. But if we don't have such kind of facility, then people will react in different ways. I mean, they will try to find a way to protest the situations because of the economic decline and etc. So the answer is to this, the growth actually, epicentrum of growth actually try to embrace those two concepts. There is no division between political and security and economic sphere, but we try to put the concepts in balance where if you have the economic growth, I think more or less later on you will have a very peaceful life, and we try to achieve that. There is only one problem to the argument, the Myanmar case. But I think the Myanmar case also strengthen the other contra argument where most of the Myanmar people actually are poor. So that's why the situation there is very vulnerable for any conflict triggered by the political parties, the junta military, and blah and etc. But I hope the epicentrum of growth in 2023 will help Indonesia to find how do we implement all those things. I mean, how do we implement the concept of ASEAN Outlook in the Pacific? How we implement the ASEAN open space? Because nobody probably in Bandung or in Cibaduyut, if you ask the trader in Cibaduyut and retailer in Cibaduyut, how do you impact by, do you have any sense of impact from the ASEAN consensus, I don't think so. They will respond that they will have. But to answer to that question is, you have stability for the last 6 decades. That's the reason why you have a good trading partner in a stable environment, because you don't have a war, you don't have a conflict. That is as a result of the stability put forward by the ASEAN associations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Takdir. I hope Dr. Pita is satisfied enough the answer from Mr. Takdir.
Thank you, Pak Kapus.
Terima kasih, Bu.
Okay, the second question is from Haikal from Venus University. He asks, you mentioned that national interest is one of the important factors of international trade. Under the GATT, countries are not supposed to apply restrictive measures to their international trade. However, Article 21 of GATT allows the exclusion of that principle in the name of national security. Do you think Indonesia can use that article to our benefit of national interest to certain industries such as nickel? Thank you.
Yeah. The question from Pak Haikal, I think, again illustrating the contest between monism and dualisms. This is the beauty of WTO agreement. Everybody, every country is abide by the rule, but actually in every treaties in the derived under WTO, they give you certain regulation or consideration for the national security. In safeguard measures, you can do that unless the national industry is not hurt. But if national industry is hurted, then you can implement, apply safeguard measures. But there is a condition that any safeguard measures you try to get, you need to notify the committee, the body committee in WTO, relevant body committee in WTO. So it is not about can we implement national security, but how do we implement national security? This is the problem with nickel. Yeah. I think we rarely notify the committee body in WTO until the European Union probably did not receive yet any explanation on the policy about moratorium for mineral, because we have the moratorium mineral policy for the reason of try to boost added value of the product in the language of helirization. But probably we did not notify or communicate well with the committee body in WTO to inform or to distribute update policy from Indonesia to other members of WTO. That's the problem, I think. And if you see the national security, the point of national security, you can also find in the investment agreement. For example, Ibu Prita knows this very well. In the investment agreement, there is a clause for the expropriation. The expropriations are actually reflecting that country can do expropriation if constitutes public interest, and the public interest is very subjective. But the public interest, for example, the protection of public health, the safety of the environment, even the security of the monetary system, you can do that. To try to get expropriation from a foreign company, but how you can do that if you cannot notify the policy throughout the process toward the parties involved. So I think the foundations is communicating, notifying every single policy we are taking, every update policy we are taking. The other party should know that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Takdir. I hope Haikal, the answer is satisfying enough for you. Hello. Okay. Last question for Mr. Takdir. One of the key factors that are important in our ability to develop our natural resources is our research and development program. What can we as students do to help contribute to Indonesia's need for research and technology to develop our own natural resources?
The question actually brings me to the last point that I can't make it in the presentation earlier. I like to show you just to answer here. You see this slide, the 10 world manufacturer superpowers. Indonesia is in number 10. But if you see the research paper produced by country, Indonesia is not there. The other 9 world manufacturer superpowers are here, but you can't find Indonesia. Why? Because of this. Number of patent that we granted from Indonesian sides is less than 30, 20. Yeah, 70, 27, 70 out of the 991 in 2019. Meaning most of the patent here granted by Haki is coming from overseas patent, not from Indonesia. Why it happened? Because of this. The number of researchers, engineer, genetical engineer, or whatever, we have less than we may have ideally. We are not talking about the 3 pillar IPR. We still implement the 3 pillar IPR, protection, innovation, and commercialization in a very segmented ways. Like protection, you can find the protection in the Ministry of Kumham, but meaning they protected the overseas patent. They are not developing the patent. Innovation, where you can find innovation. Most of the companies in Indonesia don't have R&D division. Even they have R&D divisions, the person, the employee in the R&D division is less than probably 10 personnels. The second, between industry and university, we cannot find any link. Yeah, the link that we're supposed to have, like what we can see in the Western European, the university produce the research, the outcome of the research patented by the company because they funded the research. So there is a linking between the university and the industry, and we are not finding here in Indonesia. The commercialization is the same. So that's why when the government tried to establish BRIN, Badan Riset Inovasi Nasional, the idea, I think, tried to integrate those 3 pillars. And then we come to the last, the funding. Indonesia, I think the funding for the R&D is very small, only 0.9% of GDP. The ideal funding for research and development is 2.9 GDP out of from the GDP. And China, I think you can see here how much fund they try to allocate for the R&D. That's why China is number 1 in the world's manufacturer superpower and the research paper. Most of the countries in the 10 research paper are producing like 200 papers. Indonesia, you know the number, produce like 32,000 papers. They are mostly 200 papers, research papers. So that's why it's answered the questions why we are here as a superpower, manufacturing superpower, but we are not here. The point is, that's why we lack of innovation. There is no innovation of the product. The main product of Indonesia, if you compare it with the 10 years ago, is still similar with the current main product. Yeah, footwear. But countries like China already in the semiconductor, Taiwan already moved to the semiconductors, to the digital technology and etc. So I think this is the challenge for the university to try to develop, like Dinas try to link between the capability, the capacity of research and development in the BINUS and linking with the university, with the industry, try to find to get funding from the industry, and when they patent the product, maybe the name of the industry or the name of from BINUS, but they working together. They work together for the granting patent for the product. I think that's the what is it? The simple idea of how you boost economic research and development in the university.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Takdir. All right, that's the end of our question and answer session. Thank you for the answers, honorable speakers. Hope all the answers are satisfying and fulfilling to the questioner participants. And so that ends the Q&A session. Thank you, everyone. Now, based on the results of today's international conference, material presentations and discussion, several conclusions were obtained. Some of these conclusions are, for Mr. Siregar, we know that despite all the challenges such as the pandemic, Russia-Ukrainian war, climate change, to inflation and uncertainty, the US as the second-ranked largest economy in the world and Indonesia as the fourth-ranked largest population enables many opportunities for innovation, cooperation in various fields from healthcare, technology, education, and media to maintain a stable trade and business relations in today's dynamic global situation, possibly by 2045. And for Siddhartha explained that the reduction of state sovereignty is a global phenomenon that all legal functionaries must begin to observe, shown by examples along with the increasingly widespread use of digital technology in all areas of human life. And so, controlling the flow of digital information can only be balanced through cross-border legal cooperation by opening up opportunities for the emergence of new sources of law, such as model law, development of alternative dispute resolution, and technology architecture. And we learned from Dr. Amalia that the arbitration as method of dispute settlement are increasing. Example from national arbitration and international arbitration in Bani 2010 to 2021, where it shows that national arbitration cases are 87% higher. It takes the majority from the international arbitration cases, which is only 10.13%. Lastly, from Mr. Takdir, we learned that one of the key factors that are important in our ability to develop our natural resources is our research and development program to boost Indonesia's economic opportunity in a global uncertainty. Thus concludes our international conference discussion today regarding Transnational Business and Technology Law 2022. Hopefully the material that has been presented is useful and makes us all move to follow the good theories and practices. Very well, everyone. Before I resign myself, I'm Meisha Safira as today's moderator. I would like to apologize if there are any forms of mistakes in carrying out my duty, both in words and actions. Thank you for your attention, honorable speakers and guest participants. Permission to turn the hosting back to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you and good day.
Thank you, everyone who has participated in the question and answer session. And thank you to the moderator as well for the conclusion of today's session. It has been a really insightful moment for all of us. It is time for us to move on to the most awaited session, which is the announcement for the Best Paper and the Best Presentation Award. The committee can share screen. So, congratulations for the Best Paper Award to Meli Melina, Salsabila Kurata Yuni, and Rosalita Udamina. For the top 3 best presentation, congratulations to Albert Lodewijk Sentosa Siahaan, Budiman Ginting, Muhammad Yamin, Faisal Akbar. The second one is Violen Esther Stefana, Joan Natasha Sugianto, and Elsa Finelia Kumagal. Last but not least, we have Nicholas Daniswara and Jaden Sakria. Congratulations for all of the winners. Okay, so once again, congratulations to everyone who has won the Best Paper and the Best Presentation Award. For those who haven't, do not worry, you have done your best and that's what matters. That is all for today. Before ending the event, please allow us to do a brief documentation. Will the documentation crew please be ready to take a screenshot of the event? Thank you. Once again, I invite the documentation crew to document the event. Thank you.
Okay, guys, please turn on your camera. Okay, slide 1. 1, 2, 3. Next slide. Slide 2. 1, 2, 3. Slide 3. 1, 2, 3. And the last one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you for the crew who has helped us document the event. Well, we don't want to take too much of your time. Today has been fun and full of education. We are now ready to end the event, so a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. I sincerely apologize if any of my words or actions that may displease you. Thank you for your time and attention. I am Shannon. Once again, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you,
Terima kasih
Pak
ya.
Takdir.
Terima kasih Pak Prof. Sidarta, Prita,
Pak Takdir.
Terima kasih,
ya.
Prof. Sidarta,
Pak
Pak
Ahmad Sofyan.
Zaki,
Ya.
See you.
Pak
Terima kasih.
Sofyan,
Sampai
Pak
ketemu.
Konjen.
Pak
Ya.
Konjen, teman-teman panitia, congratulations.
Masih ya. Kinlip ya.
Baik, Pak Takdir.
Ya, terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Pak Zaki.
Everyone,
Terima kasih, Pak.
I would like to remind to don't forget to fill out the exit ticket. It's for the absence for our conference today. So you can scan out the QR code here. Thank you very much.